Drugs. Drugs are amazing. Drugs have helped people with health illnesses and keep them sane. As amazing as they are, some drugs are deemed illegal by the US government to be exported or sold. These drugs are usually very addicting and don't have a big contribution to health. As much attention goes to this problem, it isn't getting any better. This video will offer a set of strategies which can be used to reduce or stop the drug trade. Drug trafficking can be stopped or at least reduced by enforcing stricter border control laws, using new technology, monitoring the most used routes, shifting funds to resources that can help prevent the use of drugs, and getting other countries involved. The first misconception to be cleared is that legalizing drugs will not help reduce or solve the drug trade. If drugs were legalized, you would be able to buy them anywhere. The problem is that taxes would be added to these drugs and prices would be outrageously high. You could buy it from a drug dealer with no tax and probably less money. Just because a drug is legal in a country, it does not mean it will stop dealers from selling drugs. The first approach to stop drug trafficking is to go on the attack. The first way to reduce or stop drug trafficking is by maximizing the use of technology and monitoring routes where most drugs are smuggled through. Most illegal drugs are used in the US, Central Europe, and various African countries. There are also different kinds of drugs made in different parts of the world. This is important to know because if we know which drugs are used in which areas, we know where to keep most of the attention on. Colombia makes cocaine. Afghanistan makes heroin and opium along with Puerto Rico. Meth and ecstasy are usually made in the US. The most used drugs from all these is cocaine. Specifically monitoring countries that make a lot of cocaine should be our first priority, like Colombia. Then we can put attention on countries that make other drugs corresponding to how used the drug they supply is. Cocaine is usually transported from Colombia to Mexico or Central America by sea to United States and Canada. North America makes up most amount of the people to be using cocaine. 40% of the world cocaine is used in North America. The most common routes for opium and cocaine are the Balkan and northern routes. These routes allow drugs to travel to Russia and Western Europe. One simple way to address drug trafficking with this info is severe border control. Automated targeting systems like X-rays can see if a particular individual, vehicle, or container is carrying drugs. Safety searches on vehicles or containers can reveal if illegal substances are crossing the border. A new surveillance aircraft which is actually being used to stop drugs from crossing borders is the aerostat. Aerostats are harmless blink-like aircrafts as shown in this video. Their only purpose is for surveillance, but then can be used for further action.
The U.S. military is hoping that despite automatic spending cuts, it can step up its fight against drug smuggling on the high seas with technology that has proven to be effective in combat operations in the Middle East.
So what we're doing is an experiment using old technology. Aerostats like this have been around for a while, but with new technology, you can see the Furuno-like radar, multispectral sensors, some other stuff inside or connected to the balloon.
In addition to the aerostat, a second tool is a small drone that can be launched from the deck of a ship by hand. Officials say together, these tools can help the Navy and Coast Guard expand their monitoring activity over a much wider area at a lower cost.
The ability to go out and make a determination whether the ship needs to launch a boarding crew or not is paramount to its ability for effective operations. So you can increase safety and you can increase awareness.
Representatives of the contractors that were observing the test declined to say how much their systems would cost, but they said each one can be operated at a fraction of the cost of fixed-wing aircraft or helicopters that are usually dispatched to check out suspected smugglers. Ross Simpson, The Associated Press.
The second way to stop or reduce drug trafficking is to shift funds into organizations that will help people get off of drugs. An efficient way to do this is to help students in middle school and high schools. Government should increase funding for after-school programs and health education classes. Health education classes can show the pros and cons of drug use. If people are better educated about the cons of drug use, people will be less likely to want to buy or use drugs. As dealers learn their futile attempts at selling drugs are not working, they will stop. But of course, this is speculation. The problem is that this only stops minor-scale drug trafficking. The Higher Education Act provisions won't allow college scholarships to students convicted of drug offenses. This should be banned because it is becoming counterintuitive in the way that people are not getting resources to pursue education, which leads to unemployment. Unemployment leads to no money. No money leads to a search for a job. A possible job that does not require too much education is drug dealing. Don't become a drug dealer. Get an education. Help the current users get over the drug use problem. This does not necessarily apply to areas where education is not easily accessible, such as a few African countries. Large drug cartels businesses, for example, the Sinaloa cartel, led by the world's most wanted man, Joaquin Guzman Loera, would be able to penetrate these defenses easily because their targets are usually organizations and people that will distribute these drugs. This leads to the problem of destroying the supply of drugs. Destroying the supply of drugs is a bit trickier. Finding the laboratories where illegal drugs are made is very difficult. A few laboratories that were found were underground, heavily and usually heavily disguised. There is another way to destroy the supply. This is to target dealers directly. As we take out the distributors of drugs, large companies will have no one to sell these drugs to. Of course, this is a very lengthy and tedious process. A lot of effort would have to go into this. The third way to stop drug trafficking is by focusing on more serious issues and small ones. The problem with this is that resources are being distributed on trivial matters, while huge problems that will not stop anytime soon are not getting any better. The less important matters in the drug trade are dominating police time and wasting the times of courts. The focus on the federal government in drug enforcement should be large cases that cross country and state boundaries. Smaller cases that are within states should be left to the states, though focusing on them can help. Possession charges are a waste of time, too. An example of how useless they are, approximately $22,000 are being spent on a prisoner. In 2009, the federal government spent $2,094,510,000 housing drug-related prisoners. 89% of these convictions were because of drug possession charges alone. Now what's the point of that? The last way to stop the drug trade is to get other countries involved. It is essential to stopping the drug trade. Since drugs are being made in so many countries, it is necessary to get help from these countries. A good strategy already in use is the Kingpin Act. The Kingpin Act became a law on December the 3rd, 1999. Its purpose is to stop all transactions between cartel organizations by the U.S. When a foreign person has a part in a trade, the president himself has authority to take action. Action A. Work with international partners to reduce the global supply of and demand for illegal drugs and thereby deny funding to transnational organized crime networks. Action B. Sever the links between the international illicit drugs and arms trades, especially in strategic regions that are at risk of being destabilized by these interconnected threats. Action C. Sustain pressure to disrupt consolidated priority organization targets, as they often have a particularly corrupting influence or providing support to terrorism. Action D. Maximize use of the Kingpin Act to pursue transnational drug organizations. Action E. Develop a comprehensive approach to dismantle drug trafficking organizations with connections to terrorist organizations. Action F. Work with the international partners to shut down emerging drug transit routes and associated corruptions in West Africa. And finally, Action G. Coordinate with international partners to prevent synthetic drug production, trafficking, and precursor chemical diversion. We can also get other countries involved to reduce drug trafficking worldwide. The U.S. can't single-handedly stop drug trafficking. If these strategies are made by countries worldwide, we can come closer to stopping drug trafficking.